Halevi's view of prophecy follows on from his discussion of God that we studied in Module 5, and it begins with a startled king noting the following problem in section 26. And that problem is that if we're basing our belief on our experience with God, that it seems as if only the Jews and their ancestors can have that belief. And the rabbi answers in section 27 that yes, this is indeed the case, and that while anyone can join the Jewish people, they will never quite be equal to a born Jew. Now, this is clearly a view with some rather unsavory, almost racist undertones to us, and many of us would simply reject it nowadays. There is no denying, however, that it has been highly influential within certain sectors of Judaism and finds echoes in many Hasidic texts to this day. Whether one likes it or not, times were different back then, and it's a view that Halevi seemed to have held. And his mouthpiece in the Kuzari, the rabbi, goes on to explain why this is the case, which will eventually bring us to prophecy. Because what Halevi then sets out for us from section 31 onwards is a hierarchy of creation that distinguishes between different levels of created beings, between plants, between all animated beings, everything that's an animal, and eventually man or humans in section 35. And he distinguishes between them according to their different powers. So plants have powers of nurture, growth, and propagation. They take in nutrients, they grow, they reproduce. Animals have that, but as well, they have movement, they can move, and they have the internal senses. They can see, they can hear. Finally, there's man, who has all of that plus intellect. Now, this actually reflects a view of the soul that traces back to Aristotle and that differentiates between these different levels of existence by appeal to these differing powers of the soul, or better, their different life forces, with humanity at the top of the tree as a result of their possession of what appears to be the highest faculty of all, the intellect. Or yet, that appears to be the case until section 37, when the rabbi asks if there's another degree. The king answers by appealing to those who have the greatest intellects, the sages, or the wise people. But this is where things get interesting, because the rabbi tells the king he's not asking for people who have more of the same, that is, people who have the most intellect. Instead, he's asking if there are any living things that exhibit a totally different faculty that distinguishes them from humanity in the way that, say, humanity is distinguished from animals. And when the king answers that no, there's no such thing as that, the rabbi pulls on miraculous examples that actually refer to things that happened in the Torah or the Tanakh, in order to show that there are beings who might indeed have some further element in their soul, which is referred to in section 42 here as the divine influence, and is identified by the rabbi in section 43 of the characteristic of the undoubted prophets. Now, in the original Arabic, this divine influence or divine element is referred to as the Amir Ilahi, which is actually very difficult to translate and is used by Halevi in a number of different ways. For us, what matters is that only Jews have this, which is why born Jews are different from other people, according to Halevi, even converts. Again, not a comfortable view for many of us today, but a product of its time. But it's because of this special, almost magical, mystical element that we really have that we're able to receive communications from God. Now, of course, the prophet's Amir Ilahi is particularly attuned to receiving such communications. To use terms that we learnt back in Module 2, one might, at least at this stage, say that the Amir Ilahi is a necessary condition for prophecy, but it's not a sufficient condition. You can't have prophecy without it, but having it isn't enough to have prophecy. And this Amir Ilahi allows Halevi to have a view of prophecy that answers to many people's intuitive view of what it is. It's a supernatural communication from God with very special people. Now we're going to delve into this view a little further in the next exercise before moving on to contrast it with a rather different view from our rationalist representative.